let's explore a C major chord all over the entire fingerboard. Now you're going to need to see the inversions, so if you look at diagram 1, you will see that there are 3 different fingerings or groups of notes, layouts, for this C chord. We're playing 1 note per string, and let's just look at how it's color-coded. The first one, which is in red, would simply be this C chord down here in first position. And if you look at the tones, the chord tones, it's 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. Now, when you have a triad, you have 3 inversions. Root position would be 1, 3, 5. First inversion would be 3, 5, 1. Second inversion would be 5, 1, 3. So you can see from a technical standpoint, I'm hybrid picking. I use the pick on the lowest voice, meaning the thickest string, lowest in pitch, middle finger on the next voice up, ring finger on the next voice. So if I'm playing a 3-voice chord, that's how I'm playing it. Because remember, our goal here is to get a keyboard type approach. Obviously you could strum these, but it's going to be important that you pluck them. I also suggest you practice playing them with your middle ring and pinky. If you're not used to hybrid picking, work on it because it's going to be an invaluable tool in your playing. And if you grow your nails out a little bit and file them like a classical player, it really helps you balance the voices out. Alright, so let's take diagram 1 and make sure you can play across the first group, the red notes. 5, 1, 3 on the bottom 3 strings. You can arpeggiate it, which means you plant your pick in your fingers and remove them one at a time. Also pluck them all at once. Okay, know that that's second inversion. Then you have root position. And try different fingerings. That's going to be important on your fretting hand. Play all sorts of fingerings on this. Now, I know this seems very elementary, but you've got to know these triads. Next one would be first inversion. And play it again with different fingers because it's going to free up other fingers for these bass notes that we're going to play to create slash chords. And then on top. Okay. Now, if you look at the last group on diagram 1, you'll see it's the same thing occurs 1 octave higher. So it's important you see that not just down in open position where you have open strings. You've got to see it in all the other positions, because when you play other chords, obviously you're not going to be down in first position. So this would obviously be the C chord form. Okay? Now, naming these might get a little peculiar. If you know the cage system, we can go with that. So we'd look at this as coming out of our C form right there. Okay? To create our inversions, you simply take each note in the chord and move it up to the next note in the chord. You'll be viewing it along the length of each string. So let's just take the top 3 strings of what we just studied. You have 5, 1, 3. If you look at it, you'll see how red goes to black. So the 5, the open G, goes up to the C, 5th fret of the 3rd string. That's our root. On the 2nd string, the C, 1st fret of the 2nd string, moves up to the 3rd. And likewise on the 1st string, the open E, the 3rd, moves up to the G. So that gives us our next inversion up. So if we look at this chord form all the way across, you can see it's coming out of our G form, your capo G fingering. But because we're playing 1 note per string, we have to play the 5 over here on the 1st string. Okay, so we're going to play this group of chords. There's your root position, 1, 3, 5. Second inversion, 5, 1, 3. And so it could be a lot of different fingerings, right? First inversion, 3, 5, 1, and then on your bottom 3 strings, 1, 3, 5. So make sure you practice these rotations. Right away, we want to talk about duplication. For example, if you look at the second inversion triad in your first form down there, the same notes appear on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings. So know your duplication, meaning where the same notes are played in different places on the neck. Likewise, here you had the 3, 5, 1. Well, that's available right here. So you get a different timbre because the strings are thicker and you're in the middle of the neck. And then your root position down here, 1, 3, 5, is duplicated 1, 3, 5. So I'm just going to show you very quickly how you might practice with these 2 forms. You might go across. Then you might go across. Then you might practice duplications. Then you might also practice the same inversion in octaves. For example, right here I have root position, C, E, G, 1, 3, 5. The octave of that would be. Then I could also look at it this way. So that's just food for thought, ways you want to practice this. We're not getting into the single note work in this particular group of lessons, but when we do, you'll see how to play your arpeggios a number of different ways by combining these two forms. Now we're only going to have 3 forms, right? Because our first one started on the 5. That's one way of looking at it. That was the lowest tone in that entire arpeggio or chord voicing. That moved up to the root. Our next one, which is a little trickier, would start up here. So I don't know if it's trickier, but you see your C bar chord that comes from an E form. Well, the bulk of that, 5/6 of that, is right there, and then you just add this E. So we go through and we play all the different triads. I'm not going to belabor the point. I think you understand how to label them in terms of what inversion they are, also how to see the duplications, to see the octaves, and how to practice them. Okay. Now, those are your major triads. We have them plotted out in diagram 1 as a C chord. C is 1, E is 3, G is 5. Learn these, because every jam that you're going to use, every bichordal progression that we're going to study in this course, will have a C chord somewhere in it, either C or C minor. So the ones that have a C major, the 1 chord, you're going to use these forms, and you're going to actually see them against the bass note and a lot of different inversions and things like that. So make sure you get a handle on these. It keeps you from just being the kind of guitar player that just cranks out a whole big bar chord. There's a time and place for that, but remember, we're not trying to think like a guitarist for this course. We're trying to get into the realm of keyboard voicings.